Hi, and welcome back to Ron Hasn't Seen. This is a channel where I watch older movies that I haven't seen before that I probably should have seen at some point, either when I took film classes or just as part of the cultural, awareness. And tonight, we're starting off a series of 1970s movies which all kind of have the same feel to them, I think, with 1971's French Connection. This is a noir-inspired detective story directed by William Friedkin. It was written by Ernest Heidemann, based on the book of the same name by Robin Moore. The book itself was based on real investigations by real detectives Eddie Egan and Sonny Grosso. They're portrayed in the film as Jimmy Popeye Doyle, who's played by Gene Hackman, and Buddy Cloud Russo, who's played by Roy Schreider, respectively. The story follows Doyle and Russo as they try and uncover what a group of suspected mobsters are involved in, and it leads them to tracking Alain Charnier, a French businessman, and his TV star friend, Henry Devereaux, as they try and smuggle a large amount of heroin into New York, using Devereaux's fame as a cover to avoid suspicion, with the drugs hidden in Devereaux's car. The handoff is postponed because they're suspicious, they know something's up, the mobsters are pushing to make it faster. Charnier knows he's being trailed. And at some point, Nikolai, Charnier's hitman, attempts to kill Doyle, leading to the famous car chase. Popeye Doyle is not popular amongst the other cops for being a bit too rash and getting other cops injured and killed. And at the end of the film, this proves to be the case again, when in an attempt to gun down Charnier during the big climax, he just opens fire on the first person to come through the door, and he kills an FBI agent, Mulderig. The movie ends soon thereafter, and when we see Doyle rush into an empty room, and we just hear a gunshot, and then we're given the typical, title cards as to what happens to all the characters. So most of the criminals either get away or just get minor sentences, and Doyle and Cloudy are kicked off the narcotics division for botching the case. So I like this film, but it really is most famous for its very unique car chase. It's often ranked among the best ever. It's a very original, with Doyle chasing down Nikolai on an elevated subway train. While Hackman's Doyle is in a car he just commandeers, as Nikolai tries to flee after the hit on Doyle goes wrong. And yeah, I'll admit, this is specifically why I chose this film. And while it's an excellent car chase, there's something that maybe not aged as well with it. Even taking it out of, CGI car chase efforts, I'm not sure it compares with intensity of some modern car chases. Like Ronin comes to mind. But its influence is very clear on these. And it's still very thrilling, which I think is kind of weird to say because, in every car chase, the chase and chaser are always separated. But something about this felt more impersonal than most of the car chases just because of the train and the fact that Nikolai's coming into conflict with other characters while the chase is going on. So it's not just him and Doyle, it's this whole thing, and that kind of felt a little impersonal. But, as I said, it deserves its place as a classic car chase. The whole film style is great, gritty realism, very what I would characterize as 70s film, and it's obviously an influence on what comes after it. I'm going to mention this again in Mean Streets, but these movies from this time period, it's probably so influential on styles of things to come from Tarantino and, even procedural cop shows. So this is really the era of the up-and-coming directors who came up as film students, Coppola, Spielberg, Scorsese, Lucas. But Friedkin wasn't really part of that group, but he studied film in his own way. He really kind of looked into different things as he was up-and-coming in TV production. And he really says, the French film Z is the influence of the style here. So, very much, to me, feels that same kind of film school mentality, even if he wasn't a film student with the rest of these guys. I think he did an excellent job. The film's well crafted, well paced, and there's great acting. Roy Schreider. It's hard not to just think of Jaws for him, but he was very good in this, and I actually didn't know he was in this till I watched it. Uh, Hackman, who's now a legend, he wasn't who Friedkin wanted for this. Friedkin went through Paul Newman, Jackie Gleason, Charles Bronson, Lee Marvin, James Caan, Robert Mitchum, and Steve McQueen, among others, before getting to Hackman. They all dropped out for either financial reasons, didn't want to do the movie, the studio didn't want the guy. Lots of reasons, but Hackman ended up being perfect for this role as Doyle. He plays this kind of anti-hero cop. I'm going to get to that more in a moment, that he's not really a hero, but he's still a protagonist. And the bad guy, Charnier, is played by Fernando Rey, and his casting was actually a mistake. They actually wanted Francisco Rabal from the movie Belle de Jour, but the casting director watched the wrong one of Luis Buñuel's movies and picked the wrong Spanish actor after he was given the instructions on who to go after. I thought that was funny when I found out about that. Now let's get to Doyle as not really a likable hero. And this goes into something that came up right after I watched this, when we found out Disney was editing this film on any of its streaming platforms, as well as supposedly going out and editing the digital copies you buy on iTunes. I haven't checked on this. They went ahead and removed a whole little line from Doyle, I think, to Cloudy about tracking down people and uses the N-word. And I noticed the scene when I watched it in the movie, and it stuck out to me, is when you see a white character use the line like that, you're supposed to not really like them. You're supposed to think they're the bad guy or something's wrong with them. I'm not sure if that was the intention in the 70s, but given that Doyle was not liked by his cops, you could see he goes above and beyond, not above and beyond in a good way, but he goes too far most of the time and does get people killed because he's just obsessed. And yeah, I think it really takes away from Doyle's character. I think it tells us who he is having the line out. I understand, why it's not in there. But this isn't a kid's film. This is an adult film, and I think adults will understand that Doyle's not the good guy. You know what? If you want to edit on the streaming platforms, that's one thing, but I don't like the fact that you edited out the version people go and buy. If you want to edit on your platform, you're curating your own content, but I think it takes away from the definition of who Doyle is as an unlikable, not even an anti-hero. I think he's just a protagonist. I don't think he's a hero in any sense. And I think that line goes to show us that and tries to tell the audience, you don't want to root for this guy even though we're following him. And then they went ahead and did a French Connection 2 after this, which I have not watched, which is a direct sequel, which is showing that Doyle, was on his own trying to redeem himself by going after Charnier again. And I don't think that's necessary. I'm not going to watch that at all. I think it takes away from this film, which I think is a good example of kind of what detective neo-noir became in the 70s and what came after it with crime dramas and realism and grittiness that really defines what I think of as like 70s cinema. I mean, obviously you have things like Star Wars and Jaws and the birth of the blockbuster, but you also have the birth of the indie feel and these kind of darker films. So yes, I will recommend you see The French Connection. It's a good film, and I think it's an important film for the way films developed after that. So thank you guys for watching this episode of Ron Hasn't Seen. If you like what I'm doing here, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to continue. I've got about 4 more movies in this 70s series. Next week, we're going to be talking about Martin Scorsese's Mean Streets. Now, Scorsese is one of my favorite directors of all time. Goodfellas might be my favorite movie, so I was really looking forward to seeing where he came from. So, check that out next time here. And thank you guys again for watching Ron Hasn't Seen, and have a good night.